So the reason that I intend to vote no for this contract primarily is because I haven't had sufficient time to read the documents, and I don't know what's being negotiated, what's on the table, what might be taken later. A secondary reason is that I've watched several people work toward receiving these AUs, or credits, that are supposed to be compensation and allow us to, benefit the students while increasing our own ability to be paid for the hard work that we do. The work is being put in. The people are spending their time designing programs, working directly with students, working directly with community, and they are not receiving the credits they've been promised. So those are the reasons I intend to vote no.
All right. I think the most bothersome part of the contract is the portion that makes it seem like the union is the only one who can send out emails to anyone or use interdepartmental mail or use mailboxes in the office. It's confusing. I'm confused as to why it's in there, and it sounds rather draconian and out of place. And I can't vote for a contract that has that language in it. I'm going to vote no for this contract.
I think we should vote against the tentative contract. Students of African American background are much more likely to be put in overly large classrooms. Certainly true here in the city. And research has shown that smaller classes are a big improvement in learning. Now, this contract doesn't have anything about that or any other thing that's going to really help our students. The contract does have the AU system. It claims that it's going to make the quality of teaching better, but that's not true. The Nashville study, called the Point Study, clearly showed that it's just not true that merit pay, and the AU system is merit pay. That means, in other words, they give us more money for student statistics going up on test scores and so on. That study clearly showed that it doesn't work. And that was the only part of the contract that even claimed to be helpful to students. So our contract needs to set maximum sizes for classes. It doesn't do that. It is true there's a state law at the moment that needs to be overturned that says we can't negotiate on that. But what we could have tried hard to negotiate on and made progress on is something called TSL, Total Student Load. It means the number of students that a teacher has altogether in the course of a day. So if we had fought that a teacher with 5 classes should have a total load of no more than 100, that would make the classes smaller. Not all the same, so we're not setting a maximum class size. Some might be 25, some might be 15, but we would be winning much smaller classes by winning in the contract a stipulation about total student load. The union leadership knew that many of us thought that was important. EDS had a survey last year that showed lots of people supported that, and it's not in the contract. We don't know if the union fought for it during negotiations. I doubt it, and that's something that ought to be in the contract.
I think the AU implementation process has been overly confusing. A lot of the dates that were originally set out weren't met. Teachers were told initially that we'd get AUs for certain things and certain coursework and certain professional development, and then told later or after submitting paperwork that it wasn't worth AUs. I do spend a lot of time with after-school clubs, and I spend time after school tutoring kids when they need help in math. And so I don't have a lot of time to seek other opportunities beyond my job other than things in the summertime.
I'm going to vote no on this contract because there are so many more important things that our union negotiating committee should be pushing for that I don't see them pushing for. A lot of teachers I know feel unsafe at work, and a lot of students I know feel unsafe at school. And more police and more regulations and rules isn't going to fix that. We need real change. The fact that you don't get a raise after working a year if you don't prove to somebody somewhere that your work is causing student growth is absurd, because if for no other reason than the amount of time it takes to prove that your work is causing student growth is time that you are not actually causing student growth, let alone the fact that there are myriad factors that affect our children, that our children are dealing with the traumas of poverty and institutionalized racism and violence on a regular basis. And we're trying to deal with them as whole human beings. We need an organizing model of unionism. We need transparent negotiations. We need the body of rank and file teachers to be brought in to the negotiating. We need to fight together for a school system that honors that work and that really holds us to high academic standards by recognizing the realities that our children live in and making the changes necessary to support students, teachers, and communities. I am encouraging people to vote against the contract and then push the union negotiating team to go back to the table, demand that our current contract be extended until we have a better one, and really fight for what the teachers and students in this city need.
At the moment, teachers cannot file a grievance about the content of an observation, cannot file a grievance about the content of an evaluation. It's a very one-sided process where someone else gets to determine what they think. Teachers have no say-so in the process at all. And with the last contract, and again with this contract, if it stands, the AU system and awarding AUs for different levels of annual evaluations means that it plays a fundamental role in pay. The Chicago teachers, when they had their big strike a couple of years ago, among other things, they won the right to grieve the content of an evaluation and an observation. We need that right. It's very important. The contract has not won that. Last year, when Tisha Edwards was speaking somewhere, and that was pointed out, she said, well, that's a negotiating item. Apparently, our negotiating team didn't push hard enough, if at all, for that. It needs to be in the contract. That's another reason why we need to vote this contract down and do better. I appreciate the hard work of the negotiating team, but that does not mean that we've done as well as we could. So I think a no vote would be appropriate. Send our negotiating team back to the table and fight for a better contract for us and for our students.
I plan to vote no on Thursday because it took them over 3 years to come up with this contract, and they've only allowed us about a week to look at the 18 pages of changes. We need time to read them, read the pages, digest the information, and ask any questions that we have. And I don't believe that we're given enough time. So I'm going to vote no on Thursday.